Thrawn Ascendancy Greater Good by Timothy Zahn is out today. This is the second book in a series that began last year, and I liked the first book quite a bit, so how does Greater Good hold up? Here are my spoiler-free thoughts. And I thought it was fine. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, it was just kind of there. Something I said I liked a lot about the first book, Chaos Rising, was that I sometimes had to remind myself that I was reading a Star Wars book. It was different and weird and free to do its own thing. So now I feel a little hypocritical or fickle when I say that I think Greater Good went a little too far in that direction. The unknown regions, or chaos as the Chiss call it, are very strange, as they should be, but it feels overly complicated. Chiss naming conventions make it difficult to distinguish between characters of the same family because all their names start the same way. I found it hard to keep up with the non-Chiss cultures. I take notes as I read through these books, so that helped a lot, but I could see this being a rough book to just enjoy casually. I said in my review for Chaos Rising that it all felt like just the tip of the iceberg, and I was right, but I think less could have been more in this case. I guess the fact that Zahn has more free reign to do whatever he wants in the Ascendancy is a double-edged sword. It's great that he can do anything he wants without having to worry about the rest of galactic history. I didn't like seeing Thrawn's stories being so closely tied to what was going on in Star Wars Rebels, with Thrawn alliances and treason, but on the other hand, I found myself struggling to care about all the Chiss family drama. All the higher-ups in every family are completely insufferable, and I think that is 100% the point, but I felt like I had to search a bit to find characters to root for. They do exist, but some of them aren't introduced until a good way into the book, and one of them isn't likable until the end, which is a good character arc, don't get me wrong, there just aren't many relatable characters on the front end of the story. Characters I really enjoyed in Chaos Rising are still around, but not as much. Even Thrawn feels like he takes a back seat. I can see why. If things are going to get worse for the Ascendancy, he needs to be taken out of the fight a bit, or else we'd expect him to quickly fix things. Although it would have been interesting and surprising to see him fail for once. I do think the overall story and plot surrounding what's happening in the Ascendancy is cool and creative. We know in Thrawn alliances and treason that there could be civil war brewing back in Thrawn's home. We're seeing some of those seeds planted in Greater Good, and that was a lot of fun. The more focused the story got, the more I enjoyed it. The more focused the story got, the more I enjoyed it. The more expansive it was, the more I found it confusing. Come to think of it, there is a pretty large plot point that is left largely unresolved at the end. It could certainly come into play in Lesser Evil, which comes out in just a few months, and I hope that's the case, but it seems odd to not have at least a little closure for this one thing at the end of the book. I've been pretty critical of Greater Good so far, but I do want to set aside my own preconceptions for this story for a second and focus on what I think Timothy Zahn was actually trying to say, because I think he does effectively communicate a good and worthwhile theme. I see it as a condemnation against individual greed and glory. We see the negative side effects of selfishness on a personal level and on a larger scale. The Ascendancy is built around these ruling families who all compete with each other. They all loudly declare that we're all Chiss and we should all work to make life better for all Chiss, but then behind closed doors, what they really want is to make sure their family is in control. And then within those families, we have the same thing going on. The leaders of each family are vying for control and backstabbing each other. It's the people who have no lust for power and control that are able to actually effect change for the greater good. Thrawn has always been well known to be on the outside of politics, so he's able to see what really needs to be done, but there's also a humble rancher character, probably my favorite of this story, who becomes instrumental to the plot because he's able to view the world without any ulterior motives. So I wanted to point out that I like what Zahn has to say, and I think he clearly gets his point across. Still no spoilers, but the ending was very creative and different, and I appreciated that as well. But as a Star Wars story, I think I was missing some things, like the Force. It's present, but it's treated so much more clinically than I prefer, which in my head I'm like, yeah, that does make sense for someone like Thrawn, who doesn't really get it, and the Chiss, who have always seen its Force users as assets and not people. The whole thing just reads more like a science fiction book rather than a space fantasy, and I do prefer my Star Wars to lean more into the fantasy side. And that's fine. It's what I think is great about Star Wars at the end of the day. There's plenty of room for different interpretations. I have friends in mind that I think are really gonna dig Greater Good specifically because they prefer their Star Wars to be more science fiction. And that's great. So if you're one of those people, you'll probably really enjoy Greater Good. If you're really into Thrawn and the Chiss, I think this is a no-brainer. But if you're all about the Jedi and the Sith and that side of Star Wars, you're not gonna find it here. All that said, I'm still excited for Lesser Evil, which comes out this November. I'm seeing ways that it could tie into the known galaxy more, connect with the other 3 canon Thrawn books, and who knows, maybe it'll even give us some clues for what appears to be Thrawn's inevitable appearance in live action. That is exciting to me. The Thrawn books as a whole have been pretty much 50-50 to me so far, so hopefully Lesser Evil will connect with me more. If you want to check out Greater Good for yourself, consider picking it up for free on Audible. Just follow the link in the description or visit www.audibletrial.com/Star Wars Explained. The audiobook is out right now, and the production value on all the Star Wars books is very high with sound effects and music. It's like listening to a movie. Signing up for an Audible trial will get you a credit for 1 free book, and you can use it on Greater Good or just about any Star Wars book you can think of. Or get any book you want. The point is, you get a free book, and you'll be supporting the channel when you do. But that's it for today. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with all our Star Wars coverage, follow us on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.